Hi there. So in this video, just so you know, I said that "oh hi there" thing because I noticed that like when people record and then they upload to YouTube, the first like 2 or 3 seconds isn't the audio doesn't work. Anyways, whatever, blooper reel. Daniel, edit this out later. So oh hi there. So PS 8.3 Central Bank's number 2. So this is the second practice problem. It's another balance sheet and then some really good multiple choice problems that we don't usually do enough of that. I feel like in this class. So this is the same balance sheet that we saw before. It says, given the information in the balance sheet, what's the money multiplier? This is actually, we did that already way back when, I think in 8.2, when we learned this in banking. So the money multiplier, if you remember, is 1 over the required reserve ratio. That's the money multiplier. And so we figure out the reserve ratio, it's the ratio of that $2,000 to that $10,000. So it's 2 over 10, so that's 0.2. So 1 over 0.2 is 5, right? So that's what we did that last time. Now, suppose that the Fed buys 5,000 worth of bonds from Clayton Bank. Now, we did this in the last video, so we know what happens, right? They get $5,000 in excess reserves, and the bonds go to $2,000. That's how that works. And then it says calculate the maximum change in the money supply as a result of the purchase. So the initial change in the money supply, we can actually immediately quantify. When they did that, they created $5,000 more, right? Now they exist. There are new $5,000 that just exist out of thin air. So clearly the number is going to be at least 5,000. But what happens if this bank lends out their excess reserves, their 5,000? Remember, banks can loan out all of the excess reserves. And when they do that, if they loan it out, that's new money. That's new money being created. And we did this problem already, but we did it with someone depositing money. And the tricky part there was if they deposit it, then the bank can't lend out the whole amount of the deposit. You remember that where we had to be like, they couldn't loan out that because they had to keep some in required reserves. But the bank, this bank, Bank of Clayton, can lend out all of that $5,000 because it's not from a demand deposit, right? It would just be the same as if somebody walked in with a savings deposit and deposited $5,000 into a savings account. Then the bank can loan out all of that. And so what we can do is we multiply it by the 5. Now, here's the interesting part. We don't subtract anything from this because this is new money. It didn't get deposited from somebody else, right? If we had the same question and somebody walked in and they deposited $5,000, the problem is that 5,000, all of it could be lent out and we multiply it, but that's not the change in the money supply, because if somebody deposited into their savings account, then the money was already in the money supply. But in this case, this person, this wasn't a person depositing the money. This was the Fed just creating new money. So it's the 5,000 times the 5 is 25,000. Now this is really whack, right? It's wackadoo up in your head. You just got to slow down and ask yourself a simple question. Was the original money already part of the money supply? If it was, then you subtract it out when we're talking about changes in the money supply. If it wasn't, like in this case, it's not. It's just brand new. It just goes invented. Then it's part of the money supply. It's changed the money supply. So just be very careful when you're reading these and ask yourself, was this already in the money supply or not? All right. Now, the next question, instead of the Fed purchase, what would be the maximum change in the money supply if an individual had deposited $5,000 in cash? This is the difference, right? And this is 5,000 times 5 minus 5,000. Now, here's the other tricky part. I think I may have actually just screwed this up. The bank had to keep, sorry, it's not 5,000 times 5. The bank had to keep a chunk of this money in reserve. So I actually played 2 tricks on you with this one, and I messed myself up. How much of this 5,000 cash did they keep in reserve? Well, 20%. So they could only loan out 4,000 of the 5. So, but at least I caught my mistake, right? Times 5 equals, right, the change in that amount. And that's the kind of tricky part here. The values are different, right? In addition, because that money was already in the money supply. That's kind of the asset, the easy way for us to kind of do that, to think about that. All right, assume that this is the second problem. Assume, totally unrelated to the balance sheet. Assume that the money lent by a bank is deposited back into the banking system as a checkable deposit. The reserve ratio is 10%. What's the money multiplier? So that should be pretty easy. 1 over 0.1 is equal to 10. What's the maximum effect of a $100 million purchase of treasury bills by the Fed on the value of checkable bank deposits? Well, this purchase by the Fed is brand new money. So it's 10 times 100. So it's a positive 1,000 million increase, right? So it's an increase by $1 billion, is how we would know how to do that. Third, this is our multiple choice practice. If the Fed buys treasury bills, bonds, the Fed buys bonds, what happens to bank reserves and the money supply? Bank reserves get bigger because that's how, that's literally how it functions. And the money supply gets bigger because now there's literally more money. So the correct answer is B. When the Fed makes a loan to a commercial bank, it charges, this is just a vocab term, but you should know this, it's not the federal funds rate. Remember, that's the rate that the banks charge each other. Banks charge each other for overnight loans. If you want, I could do the, hey, this is PNC Bank. We really need some extra money. All right, yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, I'm Bank of America. I think we could do this deal. Okay, what are you going to charge me? I think I'm going to charge you the federal funds rate. That's what the interest rate is in the overnight lending market. That's what I'm going to charge you. Okay, sounds good. All right, PNC. Hey, this is PNC Bank. We'd like to talk to the Fed. Hi, this is the Fed. Nice to talk to you. We need some overnight loans. We need a little bit of loans here. We can't cover. We need a little bit of excess reserves. Can you help us out? We want to talk to you. We really like a good deal. Oh yeah, we can make that. We can make that deal. Come, you just come on down to the discount window. We're going to charge you the discount rate. Oh, okay, cool. Sounds good. Discount rate. Hopefully that helped you. See you next time.